My name is Julie Cameron, and I'm the Associate Director within the Mental Health Foundation. So we are an organisation who is focused on the prevention of mental health problems, and that means that we try and work to ensure that people have the best conditions to enable them to thrive in their lives. So that involves working with policy, working in research, and also doing more programmatic work to ensure that we best understand the relationship between mental health and different things in people's lives. And also, as I say, so that we can really let people know what will help to improve their mental health or to prevent mental health problems starting in the first place.
My name is Heather Lewis. I work at the Mental Health Foundation. I manage various projects, particularly with children and young people, a lot of which are through sport. So working with sporting organisations to equip them and cheerlead and support them as they help to support people's mental health.
मेरा नाम है सैयद अजहर अली शाह बुखारी. I'm President Pakistan Cycling Federation and also President South Asian Cycling Federation. मैं पहले था अपने सूबे का जनरल सेक्रेटरी, फिर मैं सूबे का KPK का प्रेसिडेंट बना. उधर मैंने 10 साल प्रेसिडेंटशिप की और कुछ 10 साल मैंने जो है ना वो किया, जनरल सेक्रेटरी रहा हूँ. उसके बाद मैं फेडरेशन में था. फेडरेशन में एसोसिएट सेक्रेटरी, वाइस प्रेसिडेंट इस लेवल्स पर काम करता रहा. लेकिन 2011 में जब 12 में हमारे इलेक्शन हुए तो उसमें मुझे इलेक्ट किया गया एज ए जनरल सेक्रेटरी पाकिस्तान साइकिलिंग फेडरेशन. वहाँ पे मैंने फेडरेशन में 8 साल गुजारे, 2 टर्नओवर गुजारे. तो फिर हमें वो सीट छोड़नी पड़ी, तो उन्होंने मुझे प्रेसिडेंट इलेक्ट कर दिया तमाम कैबिनेट में.
My name is Fiona Stewart and I'm the community fundraiser for the West of Scotland at Diabetes UK. So diabetes type 1 and type 2, they are both very different. Type 1 is an autoimmune illness, and type 2, there's many factors that cause type 2. It can be lifestyle, it can be carrying a bit of extra weight, it can be in your genetics, it can be your family history. So with type 1, quite often there are symptoms, but they come on very, very quickly. And potentially people can become very, very ill once these symptoms. So the most common, we call them in Diabetes UK, we call them the 4 Ts. And they stand for going to the toilet, so that's passing a lot of urine, particularly at night, feeling thirsty, being very tired, and that's more tired than usual, and thinner, and that's losing weight without actually trying. Now, these symptoms are much more obvious in type 1 diabetes. In type 2, not quite so obvious. The symptoms don't seem to come on as quickly, and not everybody will be the same, but that's the main things to look out for if you think you're at risk of diabetes. There are nearly 4.4 million people living with a diabetes diagnosis in the UK, and that's the last sort of stats are at 22-23. As such, diabetes is the fastest growing health crisis of our time, and it's affecting more people in the UK than ever, and actually more people than dementia and cancer combined.
So you mentioned the stats on the risks of developing type 2 diabetes. How do you know your risk, you're at risk?
Okay, well, we have, well, obviously there's the obvious things like, manage your weight, watch your sugar intake, and try and keep active. I mean, we all should be doing that anyway. But if you think you might be at risk of diabetes, we do have an online tool on our website, and it's called Know Your Risk. And it literally just takes a few minutes to complete the tests, and it will give you an indication at the end of it what your risk is. And it's also a good chance, if you feel like you might be at risk, to contact your GP for medical advice. Also gives, if you're at low risk, it gives steps to help you reduce your risk as well. So it's well worth doing, even if you think that you've got no risk, it's just worth being aware.
So the process of this Know Your Risk, so what's the actual process of, let's say, for example, I'm starting to get diabetes, or if someone that has diabetically issues or symptoms coming, what's the process of this, what you just said?
Okay, so at this stage, if you had symptoms or you think your symptoms are showing, that you may have diabetes, we would recommend you actually contact your GP right away. Diabetes can become very serious very quickly, particularly in type 1 and particularly in young children, they can become really poorly really quickly. So if you think you have symptoms, I would say you'd be better going to your GP and having having the appropriate tests done. If you just want to know for a general health awareness, you don't have any symptoms, you're feeling relatively well, but you might have factors in your genetic makeup, you're maybe carrying a little bit of extra weight more than you. It's an online tool and you just answer some questions and it's about your height and your weight, your gender, etc. You can also measure the circumference of your waist as well. If you do carry a lot of weight around your middle, that can also be a sign or an indicator that you could be at higher risk as well. But I think the main thing is if you are having symptoms, I would contact your GP in the first instance, just to get checked out.
How old
So-
do you have to be to do this, or can it be any age?
Any age. We wouldn't recommend doing it if you're a child, obviously. It's there for everybody who can access the internet, but we are seeing more cases of type 2 diabetes, which is not the autoimmune condition in children, but we would always say an adult should be supervising. What we want to do is we want to raise people's awareness of the risk and make sure they take the appropriate action to reduce the risk, or if they already do have type 2 diabetes, to try and make improvements in their health. We're not scaremongering, we don't want to frighten people, but if you take control of your health, you might not even develop diabetes, you might stay pre-diabetic or remove the risk completely. But anybody can do it, but it isn't unheard of for young children, as in young teenagers, to have type 2 diabetes, but it's unusual. And this isn't a test for type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes has to be diagnosed by a medical professional.
Are you able to talk a bit about Diabetes UK and how you support the people living with diabetes?
Yes, of course. So Diabetes UK is a charity, and I work in the fundraising team. And what we do is, obviously, the money raised all goes back into providing care and support for people living with diabetes. So what we do is we offer a range of support, resources and advice for people living with diabetes, and that's on our website. There's loads of useful information on our website, recipes, there's a forum where people can share experiences. We also campaign for better services for all types of diabetes, fight for the prevention of type 2, and we do a lot of work to tackle inequalities and stigma. Diabetes, particularly type 2, is a very stigmatized illness condition. People quite often think that it's something you've done to yourself, and that's not true in any way, shape or form. So we want people to be aware of the condition and not stigmatize people living with it. Ultimately, we're also fundraising research, life-changing and advances in research to make sure better treatments are out there for people living with both types of diabetes, and ultimately to find a cure. So there's a lot going on. We also have a helpline as well, and that's a team of trained counsellors who can help people with any questions they may have. Sometimes that people just want to have a talk to somebody that understands, and it's a really amazing resource, and they take a lot of calls every day.
My name is Julie Cameron, and I'm the Associate Director within the Mental Health Foundation. So we are an organisation who is focused on the prevention of mental health problems, and that means that we try and work to ensure that people have the best conditions to enable them to thrive in their lives. So that involves working with policy, working in research, and also doing more programmatic work to ensure that we best understand the relationship between mental health and different things in people's lives. And also, as I say, so that we can really let people know what will help to improve their mental health or to prevent mental health problems starting in the first place.
My name is Heather Lewis. I work at the Mental Health Foundation. I manage various projects, particularly with children and young people, a lot of which are through sport. So working with sporting organisations to equip them and cheerlead and support them as they help to support people's mental health.
मेरा नाम है सैयद अजहर अली शाह बुखारी. I'm President Pakistan Cycling Federation and also President South Asian Cycling Federation. मैं पहले था अपने सूबे का जनरल सेक्रेटरी, फिर मैं सूबे का KPK का प्रेसिडेंट बना. उधर मैंने 10 साल प्रेसिडेंटशिप की और कुछ 10 साल मैंने जो है ना वो किया, जनरल सेक्रेटरी रहा हूँ. उसके बाद मैं फेडरेशन में था. फेडरेशन में एसोसिएट सेक्रेटरी, वाइस प्रेसिडेंट, इस लेवल्स पर काम करता रहा. लेकिन 2011 में जब 12 में हमारे इलेक्शन हुए तो उसमें मुझे इलेक्ट किया गया एज ए जनरल सेक्रेटरी पाकिस्तान साइकिलिंग फेडरेशन. वहाँ पे मैंने फेडरेशन में 8 साल गुजारे, 2 टर्नओवर गुजारे. तो फिर हमें वो सीट छोड़नी पड़ी, तो उन्होंने मुझे प्रेसिडेंट इलेक्ट कर दिया तमाम कैबिनेट में.
What resources do you have available for people living with diabetes, and how can they access the resources?
So the main thing we have, as I said a minute ago, is our helpline. That's a very valuable resource, and we do get a lot of people phoning up maybe with a question, something they don't understand about maybe what they've been told, you know, about healthcare, just looking for some advice on diet, maybe going on holiday, that kind of thing. Also, I mean, the questions are really varied, but we're also there if just somebody is having a really hard day with their diabetes and just want to talk. So I suppose what I'm saying there is you don't have to have a specific question. You might just want a friendly ear to listen to you, and that's an amazing resource. Our website as well, there is loads of information on our website about managing the condition, diet, exercise, obviously fundraising activities as well, peer support, local groups in your area. So it's a really useful tool, and our website is pretty expansive, but there's lots of useful information on it.
Why is it more significant to recognize the risk factors of diabetes now ever than before you go to the doctor
Well, I
to
think
get a
obviously,
diagnosis?
yeah, I think probably the main thing is, you know, we're all advocates for our own health. And I think, you know, if you have high blood sugar or are pre-diabetic, you potentially won't develop any symptoms of diabetes for years. Maybe, you know, it could be years, it could be as long as years. This is obviously more prevalent to type 2. So if you start, you know, exercising a bit more, just maybe go out for a walk, cut down on your, you know, your white sugar, your white carbs, you know, increase your activity levels. It doesn't have to be going out for a run, you know, you could just go out for a walk, do some gardening, just and being an advocate for your own health. So if something doesn't look right or feel right, you can actually, you know, take action before it becomes serious. And that's, you know, it's, as I said earlier, it's probably the biggest health crisis in the UK at the moment, type 2 diabetes, and preventing people actually developing diabetes when they just have high blood sugar or at risk of developing, you know, pre-diabetes. That means they probably or hopefully will be able to prevent developing type 2. That means less pressure on obviously the NHS, but it also means that they're not going to suffer from the sometimes quite dreadful complications of diabetes, which can affect their, you know, their extremities, so your fingers and your toes, your eyesight, etc. So it's really important to act quickly and look after yourself, but also if you have any thoughts that you may have diabetes, to see your doctor.
So, Fiona, you touched on what food we should be eating or drinking like that. So, what food or veg or what water or food or any drink that we should avoid, and what should we have? I know we should drink lots of water. So, what best of food or tips would you give to someone that has got diabetes to
Well, I
avoid
suppose,
that?
yeah, I suppose with, you know, obviously I'm not here to tell you what to eat and drink, because that would be very boring, and you obviously we've all got to have a life. But, you know, I think obviously the government guidelines, and you've probably read a lot, you know, on the news or online recently about highly processed foods. So probably we probably want to try and avoid as much as we can junk food if you're living with type 2 or you're at risk of type 2, or you just want to get a bit healthier and prevent, you becoming type 2 diabetic. Cut out the junk food as much as you can. Try and eat, less refined white carbs. So obviously sugar, white bread, white pasta. Everything in moderation is okay, but a highly processed diet definitely will increase your risk. Getting with some, drinking, not drinking fizzy drinks, full sugar fizzy drinks. I know we all like a Diet Coke or, whatever our drink of choice is. They're not the worst, but water, try and drink water. But the biggest sort of, I suppose, the biggest concern is highly processed foods and the impact they have on not just with diabetes, but there's now, research that they cause cancer, and that some energy drinks are actually impacting on the number of young people being diagnosed with colon cancer as well. So you stay away from the processed foods as much as you can, but obviously you can't not have them. With type 1 diabetes, nothing is forbidden. What you're doing is you're controlling your blood sugar using insulin. So obviously it makes sense to eat a healthy diet because then it's much easier to maintain your sugar. But sometimes people living with type 1 diabetes will have to take a very high sugar snack on quickly if they become hyperglycemic. So they will have to take on like a sugary snack, like an orange juice or a can of full sugar cola or a handful of sweets. But that's just unfortunately the only way they can control their blood sugar quickly if they're feeling unwell or feeling sick and dizzy. But we would certainly not say everything in don't ever eat a McDonald's, or don't ever eat a pizza or a curry ever again. It's just about making good choices as much as you can.
It's diabetes week this week,
Yep.
and what is the aim of diabetes week, and why is it important to get regular health checks for diabetes?
So I think what Diabetes Week aims to do is really to raise awareness about what both types of diabetes are, or the two main types, and also shout out what matters to people living with diabetes. And literally, I suppose, shining a light on what it's like to live with diabetes day in, day out. There's not an off switch. If you don't fancy dealing with your diabetes in a particular day, you can't just ignore it, because you need to be on top of your insulin, your blood sugars, your diet, your activity levels. Things even like the sunshine can affect your blood sugars. If you go and play football, or if you go to the gym, go out for a walk. So it is a really tough thing to live with. But obviously we want to celebrate the people who are, living well with it. There's a lot of people out there who are doing amazingly well living with diabetes. But also we want to talk about the health checks that you need to have when you're having diabetes, because it's really important that you have these done. And basically what the health checks are is so you, the person living with diabetes, and your healthcare professional can understand how the diabetes is affecting your body, and to make sure any conditions perhaps that come up are actually managed. So for example, high blood sugar levels can damage your eyes, can damage your feet, your kidneys, and can also increase your risk of heart attack and stroke. And sadly, this actually, these concerns exist long before you have any symptoms. So if you have any, have your routine checks on your eyes, your feet, etc., these will be picked up, hopefully picked up at an early stage, and can be treated before they become chronic or unmanageable.
So what diabetes checks should people be getting regularly?
Okay. So the NHS offers 9 main health checks for people living with diabetes, and they should be once a year, unless obviously you have a different arrangement in place or stated otherwise. So your HbA1c check, and now that's your average blood sugar levels over the last 3 months, so that's really important. Your cholesterol should be checked. Your kidney function, i.e. how well your kidneys are working, should be checked, and obviously checked for any damage to your kidneys. Your weight and your height, your blood pressure, your feet should also be checked as well, because if you, for example, have an ingrowing toenail or stand on, a piece of glass or something, and you live with diabetes, that can be devastating. You really need to get that checked before. So if you do the doctor will have a look at your foot and just check, they make sure you don't have any, cracks in your skin or ingrowing toenails or anything like that. If you're a smoker, you'll be checked and obviously advised to try and give up smoking if you can. And you'll also be sent for an eye check as well, a diabetic eye check, which looks at mainly the back of your eye as well, where bleeds can occur.
What's the ideal height or weight that you need to be if you want to avoid diabetes type 1 and type 2?
Right, with type 2, completely different. Type 1s are people living with type 1. They will the people that will go hypoglycemic and have to control that with either some some sugar or insulin, depending on the situation. With type 2 diabetes, and unless you're monitoring your blood sugar, which you probably won't be, because you've probably seen the scanner, people wearing the scanner on their arm where they scan their phone on it and they check their blood sugar in real time. That technology is designed for people living with type 1 because obviously high blood sugar could be fatal to them. With type 2 diabetics, you don't actually have the luxury of tech unless you can buy it. Some people do self-fund. So your blood sugar checks will be done by your GP, and they just want you to stay, healthy within a good range. You're not doing real-time checks with type 2. I know some people do, but they have invested in the technology to allow them to do that. But having high blood sugar, if you live with type 2, is not life-threatening like it is with people living with type 1. So that's why they don't have technology, and we don't get real-time blood sugar readings for them, only done in a doctor's surgery mainly. So I suppose the key message for us is the diabetes health checks are incredibly important, even if you feel well or don't feel like you're anything has changed. So the diabetes checks, it's a very different situation depending where you live. Some people, and that's out with the whole of the UK. So a few people might have all their health checks done together on one day at the diabetic clinic, at their GP surgery or hospital, and that might also include the eye check as well. Other people might have to go to three or four different appointments at different locations, and it might be spread out across the year. But that's just very much depending on your location and your health board and how your health board runs their checks. It's really important, really most common for people to have all their checks at their diabetes review, so that should be done at their GP surgery or hospital, and they potentially might have to go to the eye clinic or back to another appointment for their eyes. And then once you've had your checkup, you should receive a follow-up appointment request to discuss with your healthcare professional. So anything that's come up or anything they want, to discuss with you. So it might be, that you're perhaps that your weight's changed, or perhaps your kidney function's not as it should be, etc., etc. They'll discuss with you how to treat these things and to make sure that you are living as as well as you can, and obviously address any concerns you might have as a result of that conversation. Well, for Diabetes Week, if you are living with diabetes type 2, that make sure you are getting your health checks, make sure that you are being seen by your doctor, and make sure any concerns are addressed. As I said, it's not always in the one day, so sometimes it can be very spread out. And I suppose as well, to make sure that your employer is aware of how important these checks are, to ensure you live well, and any problems are actually, picked up really early on. And I think just for everybody else, raising awareness of type 2, that it can happen to anybody. It can sneak up on you. You may feel well, you may not have any symptoms. And for people living with type 1, just be aware of it. So for some people, it can be an extremely hard condition to live with, particularly for parents who have a child living with type 1. There's no off switch. You're effectively your own pancreas. And probably also the difference between the two conditions. So type 1 is an autoimmune illness. Type 2, we're obviously aware there can be so many factors that can create, a type 2 diagnosis, but just, I suppose, really to let people know the difference between the two and be an advocate for your own health and well-being, look after yourself, move a bit more, try and eat as healthily as you can within reason, because let's face it, we all like a treat, and just, take good care of yourself and be an advocate for your own body as well. If you're not happy about something, go and see your doctor. And do our online check, because that's a really good starting point. If you do think, that you would like to know what your risk of developing type 2 diabetes is, definitely do the online tool. It's a really useful starting point. I'm very passionate about the cause. I think it's the work the charity does is incredible. And I think, you know, educating people about diabetes is so important, especially as it's one, you know, the UK's biggest health crisis at the moment, and so many people don't know they have a risk or don't know, you know, that they could potentially get diabetes. I think also it's a really busy job, it's a really varied job, but I get to meet some incredible people, and fundraising obviously is the heart of what I do, but I've also got a part in raising awareness and making sure people do get the support they need. Sometimes I'm signposting people, you know, I've spoke to them about a fundraising event for support, or tell them about a local family group, you know, they can go with their child to get some additional support. But yeah, it's a brilliant job, great charity, and I really hope that, you know, that people actually do the online test or go and see their GP if they're concerned, and you know, and actually do become an advocate for your own well-being and health, because it is so important to take care of yourself. Best tip, try and be healthy as much as you can, look after yourself, do some exercise. As you go to the online tool, if you have any concerns whatsoever, if you're having symptoms, don't leave it too long, go to your GP. And particularly with type 1, if your child has any of the 4 T's, which is obviously thirst, toilet, tiredness, and thin, so losing weight, you know, these are crucial moments or crucial hours sometimes when a child becomes desperately unwell with diabetes, to get them to hospital, get them checked out. So, you know, if you're in any doubt whatsoever, please seek medical advice, because it's really important. You know, these things can just suddenly go from being nothing to something in just a few hours. The 4 T's is particularly important because that's how type 1 tends to manifest in children. So, you know, things like in very small children, it could be something like a very wet nappy if they're still wearing nappies. I have had a couple of people tell me that was actually, you know, the thing that they were first aware about their child. So that's toilet, so it's passing a lot of urine, going to the toilet a lot, especially at night. And that can also be a sign of type 2 diabetes as well. But in children, wet nappies, using the toilet a lot, being very thirsty. I do remember one of my friends, he was diagnosed when he was 3, and saying that he literally, his mum could not quench his thirst. He just drank so much water and juice. Feeling tired, if you're, you know, we all get tired when we're working. Obviously, this could be children or adults. If you are tired, feeling particularly tired, and if you're losing weight without trying, certainly so that's the 4 T's, but these are the most common symptoms of diabetes. As I said earlier, not quite so obvious for type 2, and also not quite so obvious in adults, but in children, these are the most obvious ones. And in if you have any or all 4 of these symptoms, I mean, they can be signs of other medical conditions and signs of medical conditions that are maybe, you know, not diabetes, but it's always better to go and get checked out and see what's going on in your body. So our website, so if you go on our website, www.diabetes.org.uk, there's all the contact details for the appropriate areas of the charity there. Coming up in the future, well, obviously lots of research, lots of money going into research projects. For me, a lot of working with some amazing fundraisers, including Colin and Martin. Really looking forward to hearing all about how their pre-party goes. And also ultimately, you know, making sure that we're making groundbreaking, you know, changes to diabetes care, but ultimately finding a cure for diabetes, because that's what we want to do, and that would be amazing if we can do that. And we need people's help to do that, not just, you know, in raising awareness, but also you know, fundraising helps pay for that research as well. So very important that we do bring money in to do that.
My name is Julie Cameron, and I'm the Associate Director within the Mental Health Foundation. So we are an organisation who is focused on the prevention of mental health problems, and that means that we try and work to ensure that people have the best conditions to enable them to thrive in their lives. So that involves working with policy, working in research, and also doing more programmatic work to ensure that we best understand the relationship between mental health and different things in people's lives. And also, as I say, so that we can really let people know what will help to improve their mental health or to prevent mental health problems starting in the first place.
My name is Heather Lewis. I work at the Mental Health Foundation. I manage various projects, particularly with children and young people, a lot of which are through sport. So working with sporting organisations to equip them and cheerlead and support them as they help to support people's mental health.
मेरा नाम है सैयद अजहर अली शाह बुखारी. I'm President Pakistan Cycling Federation and also President South Asian Cycling Federation. मैं पहले था अपने सूबे का जनरल सेक्रेटरी, फिर मैं सूबे का KPK का प्रेसिडेंट बना. उधर मैंने 10 साल प्रेसिडेंटशिप की और कुछ 10 साल मैंने जो है ना वो किया, जनरल सेक्रेटरी रहा हूँ. उसके बाद मैं फेडरेशन में था, फेडरेशन में एसोसिएट सेक्रेटरी, वाइस प्रेसिडेंट, इस लेवल्स पर काम करता रहा. लेकिन 2011 में जब 12 में हमारे इलेक्शन हुए तो उसमें मुझे इलेक्ट किया गया एज ए जनरल सेक्रेटरी पाकिस्तान साइकिलिंग फेडरेशन. वहाँ पे मैंने फेडरेशन में 8 साल गुजारे, 2 टर्नओवर गुजारे. तो फिर हमें वो सीट छोड़नी पड़ी, तो उन्होंने मुझे प्रेसिडेंट इलेक्ट कर दिया तमाम कैबिनेट में.